Flipping the story that I was telling myself and identifying as the learner
Mm.
changed everything. That was really the big shift. We set a goal and we reverse engineer what are the things that are going to lead to that goal. We can leverage their existing behavior. You see how much clarity they have in their business, and it just changes the game. Step one, we get your books in order. Step two is we implement the forecast to show you where you're going. When you know the rules, you can break them.
Hello, and welcome to the Success Differently podcast. My name is Michelle Sorgaroli, and I'm your host today. And we're being joined by my guest, Daniel Breez. Now, Daniel is the founder of Measured Growth CPA, which focuses on working with influencers, coaches, and creators to maximize profit and scale faster. But Daniel's journey didn't start with CPA. Back in high school, it actually started back in high school when he was a competitive dancer. And there's videos online of dancing the Argentine tango, among other things, should you choose to check it out. Quite talented, but nonetheless, his parents sat him down and they suggested that he was good at math and maybe the dancing career wasn't going to provide a good life. Daniel later on discovered that maybe a different life, a good life to people look different for everybody, but at the time he didn't know that. So off he went to pursue his accounting and CPA designations. Today we find that Daniel is really valuing both supporting his clients around clarity in the processes and communication. It's important for him to empower them to make informed decisions. And really, it's about peace of mind. What Daniel has discovered throughout this journey is that he values consistency because he realizes the potential that lies behind it. So I'm very excited about what's coming into this conversation today. And Daniel, thank you for being here.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. That was wonderful.
You got a
Thanks,
lot of
Michelle.
secrets. Your
You
past
found
is,
them.
yeah, I know, I found them. No, your past is so interesting. And, seeing that journey, I'm so excited to learn about that journey from imagining your passion in competitive dance and obviously the creative arts generally. I know you've taken up guitar and you're a singer. You speak Russian as well, right?
This is
So,
true.
yeah, so you've got this really creative edge to you. So if you could share, how did that feel for you in high school and moving into the CPA career that you have now? I'd love to hear a
Yeah,
little bit about that story.
so interesting. It feels like a different life at
Right?
this point, right? Yeah, I mean, dance was a huge part of my life. I started ballroom dancing when I was around 10 or 11,
Mm.
and it was just like what I did every single day after school, practiced for multiple hours. It was very expensive, and I didn't know at the time. My parents were paying for it, but
Right.
like as I got older, and I started to pay for my own expenses and getting a job, I started to do shows as well. And I started to understand how expensive this really is. And it's not really something that has a lot of prospect, unfortunately. So
Mm.
like there's a few paths that people go when they're in that world. They either become a teacher,
Mm.
which could be really rewarding, but it's a different lifestyle and schedule than most people are used to. Or you can now this exists at the time nobody was thinking about this, but you could go towards like Dancing with the Stars, or So You Think You Can Dance. Actually, there were people on Dancing with the Stars. I don't know if they're still on it now, but like 10 years ago that I used to compete against. So that
Oh my
that was pretty cool
gosh.
to see them.
It would
Uh,
be.
yeah. Um, yeah, and I had to make a decision at some point. So when I was getting to the end of high school, I was starting to understand that the people that I was competing against, they were making a career out of this. So they weren't doing anything else. They had a huge passion for this thing, and I didn't see myself building a career out of it. So I decided to. Well, my parents kind of were helping guide me a little bit and sort of pushed me towards the accounting designation. They were the
Mm.
ones that really suggested that I have the skill for this, and they were right. But at the time, it did feel like I was doing it more for them than for me still.
Right.
So when I ended my dance career and started university, I actually started. I felt like I lost such a big piece of myself that I started, I
Mm.
wouldn't say I was depressed, but I was definitely sliding in that direction.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had no purpose and no meaning in my life at that point. And
Mm.
it didn't feel like the accounting thing was something that I decided to do. It felt like something that I was put into. And uh, I, the way that I got, so I guess I should say, ha being a dancer for such a long time makes you fit. Um, like you're sweating like crazy. It's like running multiple marathons every time you go to practice. So
Yeah.
it's a lot. And then when you stop all of a sudden and you don't have any other form of exercise, it's very easy to put on a good amount of weight pretty quickly,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Because like
big change.
yeah, and I always had a big appetite, but it wasn't a problem when I was doing so much cardio.
Of course.
So that probably took a toll on my psychology as well. So it
Mm,
all kind of happened at the same time that I started sliding in that direction. But fitness was a big thing that changed that for me. So for a few years, I wasn't doing any sort of exercise, and it definitely showed on my waistline. But once I started getting fit, it's actually an interesting story. So I had a friend at the time who we both wanted to get back into shape, and we didn't have any clue how to do it exactly. So we just kind of started doing what we thought was right. So we run to the gym,
right.
and then we would pick whatever exercises we felt like doing at the time, and we would run back, and I would eat what I thought was healthy, like vegetables and chicken, and I didn't lose weight right away. And
Mm.
it was actually a few months and nothing was changing,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was not sure why. So then I went on YouTube like you do, and I started looking for people that were talking about how to lose weight properly, like having a system set for it. So I found this one program. It's called Kino Body. It's a guy called Greg O'Gallagher from Toronto, and he posted a YouTube video, and he was talking about how he had a large pizza by himself the night before and woke up leaner the next day. And I'm like, that sounds cool. It was definitely a marketing tactic. But what he was actually talking about was intermittent fasting, and it was the first time that I ever heard about it. Now it's a huge deal. Everybody knows what
Mhm.
intermittent fasting is, but at the time, it was the first time that I had heard about it. And he was talking about how it doesn't matter what time of day you eat as long as you restrict your calories. So the name of the game is calories in versus calories out, and intermittent fasting is just a tool that you can use to restrict your calories. So I'm like, okay, let me give this a
Mm.
try. He's eating pizza. He says I can eat pizza, so let me try. So I bought his program. That was my first kind of introduction into the coaching world in general.
Right.
And I bought his program, followed it for 3 months, and ended up making a huge transformation just within 3 months of consistently following his program. And he actually
Nice.
posted me on his page as one of his like transformation examples, which was really cool. I don't have the same six pack I used to, but it was fun at the time.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're speaking to the journey of transformation, how you found yourself again in a sense, right? Or
100%.
redefined who you are, who you were. Can I pull us back to just a little bit earlier in your story? Can
Yeah,
I ask a
absolutely.
couple of questions? Thanks. So you said, you were in your dancing career, it was expensive, your parents were paying for it, and they nudged you towards a math-based career. And you said it turns out that they were right. And I was curious about that comment as it takes time to discover that because you said you were doing it for them primarily at first. And as you sit back now and look back, it turns out that they were right. What was coming up for me was this um, um, belief, I guess, or that math and music tend to go well together.
Interesting. Okay.
Math and music, mathematicians and musicians, they tend to be the same people very often.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your comment. Why, in hindsight, did it turn out that they were right?
Well, they were right about the fact that it is something that I had a knack for.
Okay.
But in some sense, I think that they were wrong to not teach me to make the decision for myself. So I kind of did what I thought that I was
Hmm.
supposed to do.
Fair. Hmm.
But they were right in the sense that I did have maybe a genetic predisposition to this. And it's interesting that you say that musicians, I had never actually thought about that before, but it makes sense. I like patterns. I like
Yeah.
rules. I like to know that 1 + 1 = 2. I like to stay in that. But there is also a creative aspect to me, and I think when you know the rules, you can kind of break them. Um, but yeah, I've never thought about that before. It's interesting. So eventually, I came to the conclusion that I had to build my own path. And accounting, I was in it, and I found a way to use my skill set to make an impact. And I think um, like I'll move a little bit ahead because it kind of explains what I'm trying to say. So after I got into fitness, I ended up learning about mindset. And that's what really
Mm,
got me out of the patterns of
mm,
victim mindset and not feeling like I was in control of my own destiny. And it was at that point when I realized that nobody's coming to save me. I have to make my own path. And it's not what my parents think about anymore. This is my life. I'm going to live with the consequences of what I decide to do. And then I started to really enjoy what I was doing and finding ways to do more of it in a way that I thought would make more of an impact.
yeah.
Yeah,
So fitness was the access point. Mindset took it to a whole new level. And that's when I'm hearing I took 100% responsibility for my future and the decisions I was making. And you said that's when everything really started to shift for you. Can you
exactly.
explain that a little further? What does that mean?
So at the time, I was already working at an accounting firm and I was studying to become a CPA. And I actually was telling myself a story that I wasn't good at this thing, which was interesting. So, although I had predisposition to rules and all of these things, somehow I had convinced myself that this isn't right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And once so after the fitness journey, I stumbled on mindset. The program that I was following, there was a guy in Romania that approached this other guy from Toronto, Gregor Gallagher, that said, I want to sell your program in Romania and I'll share the profits with you. And he started posting fitness videos on YouTube, but he also started posting mindset videos on YouTube. And those mindset videos, they were all based on Bob Proctor.
Mm-hmm.
You probably heard of Bob Proctor.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of my ticket into the mindset door that then led me to another company called Impact Theory. Tom Bilyeu might be in. So
Yeah.
I fell in love with everything that they were talking about very early on, like early 2016. That's when they started that company, and I started reading all of the books that they had put on their reading list. So the first one was called Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Oh,
Great
such a
book.
good book.
Yeah. Second one was, I think the second one was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Mm-hmm.
Also, amazing book. And all of these books started teaching me the idea of taking personal responsibility and extreme ownership. So once you understand that you're responsible, nobody's coming to save you, there's no point to complain. Everything is your fault. You have nobody left to blame. And
Yeah.
it's either you take control of your life and figure out how to make it right, or what else are you going to do? There is nothing left to do because you can't complain anymore. Like, it's your fault, so you just get to action. Sorry, I tend to go on tangents, but what
No,
was the
that's
original question?
beautiful. No, yeah, no, you're going down that path, and I think what you're highlighting here, at least what I'm hearing, is the importance of designing the inputs that are affecting how we think. So you were in what I'm hearing is you were in active resistance because the identity that your identity and how you saw yourself wasn't in alignment with who you were being.
Yes,
Is that
Ac
accurate?
accurate, absolutely accurate.
So by
Yeah,
questioning that belief system and accessing new inputs through, impact theory, Tom Bilyeu, Proctor, uh, you know, you started to design your story
yeah,
differently
yeah,
through those
absolutely.
through those inputs. That's what I'm hearing. And so, you know, base from that, how did that how did that change you? What happened then?
So I started to understand that everything is there's a narrative in my life, and I'm telling myself this story that is just a story. And I needed to stop. I needed to start telling
Mm,
myself a different story. And the biggest thing, probably for mindset and impact theory, was taking on the identity of the learner. So before this, every time I would have a setback or a failure, I would beat myself up for it. And I would tell myself things like, "You're just
mm,
not good at this thing. You're never going to be good at this thing," right? Like we talk down to ourselves and we don't even realize it. It's happening at a
mhm.
subconscious level. And then figured out that like I learned from impact theory and mindset that you could take control of the narrative. So I started telling myself a different story every time I would have a setback. I told myself this is an opportunity to learn. And I remember when I was studying for the CPA exams, uh, the last CPA exam is called the CFE. So it's a 3-day exam and it's a lot of cases. And you basically take 8 weeks off before the exam to study. and you're just running through cases, and you usually you're
Mm.
working with a partner, maybe a few other teammates as you study together, and you trade your cases, and then you have this marking guide, and you're going through and marking each other's cases and giving each other feedback on what you did well and what you didn't do well. And I remember at the time I was studying with somebody that he didn't have the same mindset that I was trying to work on. And I could see the difference between how I was looking at things and how he was looking at things. So at the beginning, we were starting at the same point, and we would uh, both not do very well in the cases. Actually, he was doing much better than me in the beginning. So I would grade his case, and he would get like, I don't remember, 80% on the case, and I would get maybe like 50. And I remember telling myself, this is great. I have so much to learn, and now I'll learn it, and now
Mm.
I'll know for next time. So when I get to the next case, I will do better. And of course, there'll be other things that I need to learn from the next case. And I wasn't worried about not scoring well. I actually wanted to focus only on the weaknesses because those are the things that I need to work on. And I remember he was doing the opposite at the time, and he was focused on what he did well, and not like he was looking for the things that he was doing well on the case rather than learning from the things that he wasn't doing well. And then when he did think about the things that he wasn't doing well, he would beat himself up for it. So eventually, at the end, I was doing very well, and I was so excited to write the exam that I enjoyed the entire process of the exam, and uh, I wouldn't have even been upset if I had failed that exam because I actually enjoyed that whole process. So flipping the story that I was telling myself and becoming and identifying as the learner
Mm.
changed everything. That was really the big shift in my life.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah,
Identifying as the learner, changing the story, you were essentially crafting a new identity with
exactly.
new beliefs, new philosophies, new values. The whole bit changed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so here you are, and I'm assuming you obviously did well in your exam because here we are today. You got through just
I
fine.
got there.
So how are you bringing that into the value that you're creating for your clients today?
Yeah, so I'll just tell you a little bit of how I got to starting a business. So after I passed the exam, I was at the time so involved with impact theory that I started. So they were trying different things because it was at the beginning of their business, and they didn't know what was going to work. So they tried this thing where they had different leaders in different cities organize these groups called impactivists events, and they gave full autonomy to those leaders to decide exactly how they wanted to set up those events. So I decided, and it was me and this one other girl, Kelly. Um, we started this together, and we decided that we were going to bring in guests, and we would interview those guests. Sometimes they would do their own speaking engagement, but we would
Okay.
interview the guests. And this is like my first podcast, I guess. It was in front of like a live audience, a small group. Like
Yeah.
the biggest event we had was around 50 people.
Uh-huh.
And I saw that as a really good networking opportunity. And I even thought
Mhm.
about how I could maybe bring business to the firm that I was working with at the time.
Mm.
Except the firm didn't see the value in it. I remember I needed to leave work earlier to get downtown to get to this event, and they didn't
Mhm.
like that I was needing to leave work early. And I tried to explain to them that this is a good opportunity for me to grow and perhaps I could bring in work into the firm, but they did not see it. So at some point, I realized that they weren't interested in working with these types of people. They saw things one way and they wanted to keep working that way. So I
Mm.
decided to try to switch accounting firms. And so I got a job at this other firm downtown. Um, but I ended up seeing a lot of the same patterns. And
Mhm.
I always felt so I finished my CPA exams in audit. And when you're doing audit, like usually a company who has a bank loan, the bank loan requires them to get an auditor to come review the financials and make sure that they're signing off that everything's in line with what the bank wants to see. Otherwise, the bank's going to recall the loan, and then the company is going to have a lot of problems. So the feeling that I got when I was going to these client sites is that we're bringing value more to the bank. Like now, I kind of looking back at it, we were bringing value to the client because it was helping them get the ability to get the loan. But at the same time, it felt like the clients didn't want us there, and it wasn't the
Mm.
type of value, direct value that I wanted to provide.
Mhm.
So I decided at that point that I wanted to switch to industry, and I started working as a finance manager at this skincare brand. And Caudalie, maybe you've heard of them before.
Mm-mm.
They have this beauty elixir spray that everybody knows when I show them, but they don't know the brand itself. Doesn't matter. So the company itself is pretty big especially in Europe and maybe a little bit in the United States. But they ran each country's division as a subsidiary.
Hmm.
So when they hired me, they didn't have anybody in the Canadian subsidiary's accounting department. Like they had a junior
Right.
co-op student that was trying to do the bookkeeping, but didn't really understand how to do bookkeeping either. There was a CFO that was responsible for all of the countries in North and South America, and he was based out of New York, and he would oversee things. But he wasn't directly in Canada working on the finance department. So when I got there, they had absolutely no systems at all. So I started working there, and I started building those systems, and I was like it was so much fun for me to build out their entire accounting department and their entire operation. And I realized that's what I want to be doing. Um, I don't just want to be doing taxes or doing bookkeeping, although we do all of that stuff. But what I like to call what I see myself as more, I'm your financial operations director. So when people hire us, we're depending on where they are in their business, of course, we can take care of the books, we can take care of all the compliance
Yeah.
needs. But at the highest level, we're actually building out the accounting department. And I've done this already multiple times for clients. We would build out their accounting department and then they would hire internally and be able to manage it on their own, or they would just keep us as their outsourced accounting
Hmm.
department. And then I would just manage it with my team. And that's been like the thing that I've been having the most fun doing. So I found my own sort of non-traditional path.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
you.
and
You lit up like a firecracker when you started talking about that.
I've
I could see your eyes and your energy shifted a little bit. So, you said, I just want to capture this part of the journey because it's very common where we're in an employment situation or in an environment, wherever we are, bringing our full self to the table, and others are not seeing our value, which is what you were mentioning about the accounting firms you were working with, right? They weren't seeing the value of your initiatives and the things that you were doing in order to create value in your mind. So you're finding that mismatch, and then you turned it around and you said you found yourself not showing up and creating the kind of value you wanted to create in the
That's right.
in right. So, and this happens all the time where the value that we believe we're generating isn't being appreciated, and we find ourselves in positions where we're actually creating value or delivering services, if you will, where we're not in alignment with our own value system or what brings us joy and lights us up. And what you were able to do was to notice, again, you're going to come back to the patterns and the systems that you find yourself now focused on, because it's all about patterns and systems for you, and the operational
100%.
side of the structure, right? The
Yeah.
structure of that creates it. So I see you smiling. So I see this all the time in the work that I do with, the clients that I work with on differentiating services, where the backstory doesn't always translate into the existing story, and we don't honor strengths. We don't necessarily acknowledge weaknesses in healthy ways. You work with a lot of clients across the board in services, whether it's coaches, creators, influencers. Where do you see this come up for them, Daniel, in
Not
their
having,
story? Yeah, this where they are not necessarily, or do you see it? I see it all the time. Where do you see that they're not necessarily, you're all about profit and scale, right?
that's right.
So if they're not capturing their unique identity and turning that into value, I would imagine that inhibits their ability to create profit and scale.
It's so interesting. I've never really thought about it this way, but now that you mention it, and I'm thinking about the clients that I serve and the ones that are doing well and the ones that maybe aren't doing so well. And n now that you mention it, I do see that there's a big difference between the ones that are sharing their story, like the backstory behind why they started their business. And I guess it has a very big impact now that you mention it. Um, yeah, so I have a lot of clients that they do share their story. That they'll talk about like what caused them to start this business, especially in the fitness space. Like a lot of times you'll hear about a story of
Mm,
somebody who also similar to me, like they weren't going in the right direction. Maybe they were
mhm,
drinking too much, and
mm,
and fitness changed their life, and now they started their business and they talk about that, and they work specifically with those types of clients that story resonates with them. They also I have clients that specifically talk about how they had binge drinking issues and how they overcame them, and then they are able to help other people who are in that same position and
Mhm.
who aren't sure how to get out of it. But then I have other clients that never talk about their backstory and they struggle. And maybe that would be the thing that makes them find
Mhm.
clients
Mhm.
if they were to share that. And I guess a lot of people maybe are afraid to be that vulnerable. I would be curious to hear from you why
Mhm.
some people share their story, why some people don't. And
Well, it's what we see is, you're sharing your backstory today, and you had some vulnerable moments. You alluded to you losing your fitness. You alluded to feeling down. You mentioned the word depression. You went through a dark phase.
yeah.
And I think when we're not in integrity with how we see ourselves, when we're not in alignment with that, it impacts our ability to become really valuable for the world, because we can't see that within ourselves if we can't see our own value. So what you were doing was rediscovering. And your mention of fitness, I think, is really curious, because fitness is often an access point for people,
Hmm. Agreed.
in terms of mental health, physical health. And it starts with the body, how we
Yep.
feel, right? And that sort of then translates up into the mind and whatnot. Um, so yeah, we can see that a lot. But I see it all the time. But what I'm curious about for you, because I want to bring this back to your story, because you're obviously a creative in the arts with singing and dancing and all of that past history. How do you bring that backstory into your current business? Where does that creativity
That's
show up for you?
I haven't really. That's the honest answer. I've kept most of the stuff separate, and maybe I would, um, like this conversation is bringing it out of me, I would say. So
Uh,
it's hard for me to answer that question. Like I do enjoy playing music. It's something that I haven't been doing as much lately because I've been focused on growing the business. But I would say that most of my clients don't even know that that's
um,
something that I do. Very few, if any, know that I play guitar.
if your clients were to know something, if there was something you would like them to know, what might that be?
Um, I very much enjoy playing guitar. I actually, so I started playing guitar when I was very young. I didn't play for a long time,
Mm,
between the ages of maybe 10 and 20. And then around the time where I was steering towards depression. I'm very careful because I don't think I was actually depressed, but I
yeah.
definitely was going in the wrong direction. And music actually was one of the things that helped me get out of it. So Ed Sheeran, who everybody knows now, at the time wasn't so famous.
Mhm.
And I was going through a breakup at the same time that all of this was happening. So like high school ended. A lot of my friends went to different universities. We weren't
As we
keeping in
do,
touch
we
as much.
scatter.
Yeah. Stopped dancing, stopped competing. So that
Oh,
world was different. Went into this accounting university that I didn't feel yet that was something that I had chosen for myself, and at the same time going through a breakup. So a lot of different
yeah.
things happened at the same time. And then I stumbled on Ed Sheeran's YouTube video. So if anybody hasn't heard this particular song, it's not one of his, I think it should be one of his most famous songs, but most people don't know about it. It's called You Need Me, I Don't Need You. He has this 10-minute long YouTube video, just that song, and it's a really cool version. He uses this loop pedal everyone
And
knows now.
what's the
And
name again? Just
You
slow
Need
it.
Me, You Need Me, I Don't Need You.
Okay. Hmm.
Uh, it's the live room version, if anybody wants to listen to that. So I remember listening to that and seeing how he used the loop pedal, and I'm like, that's cool. I want to try that. And I went
Mm-hmm.
to, there's this music store called Cosmos near me. And I went there, started trying the loop pedal just in the store. Couldn't afford one yet.
Hmm.
And I like fell in love with it. So as soon as I could buy one, I bought one. And then my parents were so pissed off at me at the time because on nights I was should have been studying.
Yeah.
I was just playing the loop pedal and
Oh,
I just practicing and practicing and practicing. And I learned that song, and then I started going to these open mics, and that was a lot of fun. And yeah, it's something that I hope to get more into again as soon as I have the time. But for anybody, I guess when I do get into it, I will make a post about it. And if anybody's interested in coming out to see, I would be happy for them to attend.
yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, you speaking to passion. And, your passion for music, your passion for dance, your passion for guitar, those passions have, from my perspective, they have the same foundation as your math or accounting practice, your operational practice, because they're still rooted in, to your point, patterns and the rhythms and the flow of that. They're still
mhm.
rooted in the same thing. And there's that creative bent. And what you're in your world, there's a lot of creativity potential as well, right? I'm seeing that. So I'm wondering, um, when your clients are experiencing your most creative self, what are they getting?
So one of the things, and we haven't talked about this yet, but now would be kind of a cool segue. Profit first was a big deal from in my career. When I first started my business, I felt like it wasn't enough what I was doing for clients. Like, yes, we can save taxes. Yes, we can make sure that the bookkeeping is up to date. But I wanted to give them something else. I wanted to help them make more. Uh, and it also, so the way that I learned about profit first was interesting. A client of mine
So can
was,
we just take a pause for one quick sec for those
yeah,
who are listening? Profit, can you just give us a quick intro to Profit First so everybody can?
yeah. Profit First is a book by Mike Michalowicz, and it is a system to organize your cash in different bank accounts. And when you follow that system, it guarantees your profitability.
Perfect.
It flips, the main concept about it is it flips the traditional accounting formula on its head that everybody is used to. So
Success differently.
correct. Normally, people are used to sales minus expenses equals profit.
Yeah.
Therefore, profit is an afterthought. Whereas profit first says, no, sales minus your profit is what you have left over for expenses. And it turns profit into a habit rather than something that is an event that happens at
Mm,
some point,
game
maybe.
changer.
Yeah, huge game changer. So, I was serving a client, and he was setting up an insurance plan with an insurance broker that he wanted me to talk to just so I could understand the ins and outs of it. So I talked to that insurance guy, and he told me about Profit First, and I'm like, sounds interesting. Um, put it on my list, and then later that week, another client had hired an operations manager, and that operations manager mentioned Profit First and how they wanted to implement it. I'm like, okay, two people in one week. Maybe I should put this at the top
Mm.
of the list. So then I'm like, and then he asked me to read the book because they really wanted to make sure that it was implemented properly. I'm like, okay, I'll read the book. Um, I read it as I'm reading the book, I start implementing it in my own business. Like before I get to like chapter three, I'm already starting to implement it. I have a tendency to do that. And by the time I finished the book, I was completely sold on the system. Um, that was a, it definitely piqued or definitely triggered that creativity muscle in me because this wasn't something that most accountants were talking about. It was a very
Mhm.
different way of doing things. I decided to go and get certified in Profit First,
Mhm.
got my certification, and then I realized that Profit First, I think it has a missing piece, and I took it a step further. And this is where you asked me the question of what's
Mm.
the most creative? What do my clients get?
Beautiful. Hmm.
So forecasting is what I took profit first, split up the accounts, and then designed my own forecast that works with every single bank account. And I'm actually still on the hunt. And if anybody's watching this and knows an app that could do this, I'm still on the hunt for an app that will allow me to do forecasting, but break it down by bank account. I have not seen a single app that can do that
Mm.
because in Profit First, each account serves a different purpose. We're not holding
Hmm.
all our cash in one place. So I designed this forecast. It's an Excel spreadsheet. Now my like flagship program includes this Profit First forecasting method. So the way that we help our clients is we don't just look backwards to see what
Yeah.
happened. We're looking forwards, and we're always looking forward 12 months ahead to see how are the decisions that you're making today going to affect your cash flow in each one of your profit first accounts in 12 months from now. And by doing that, we're able to set very specific targets and goals to help the clients achieve whatever goals they want. For somebody that might be buying their first home, for somebody else it might be reinvesting more into some particular coaching program that they want to take, or yeah, it could be just achieving financial freedom. So now the way that I look at the direction of my business, I'm not there quite yet, but um, I see my business as a three-step framework. Step one, we get your books in order so that they're actually reliable, so that we can make proper
Hmm.
decisions. Step two is we implement the forecast to show you where you're going, given all of this data. And then step three is where eventually I want to get to, which is I'm going to start introducing you to the right people that are going to help you take that extra profit and do the right things with it. Um, yeah, so that's probably how I've become more creative in my own business.
Oh, thank you. I love that. The missing piece. And I think that's the key for any business. It's identifying within the structure that has been laid out for us in our craft, if you will, as we're learning and studying, as we become more and more experienced in our craft. If we can identify the missing piece, and here's the key, the missing piece has we want it to create value. It's something that we feel is a missing piece that's not creating value that we envision, that we want, right? So what I want
Mhm.
to ask you is, why is forecasting from your perspective, what is it about this missing piece that's so important to you?
I think looking back, when it comes to accounting, normally you've already made the decisions, and as the bookkeeper, the job is to provide you the data in an organized way to show you what has happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily tell you where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's much more useful to know how the decisions you're making today are going to affect you in the future. And also, if we start with the future, we can reverse engineer all of the decisions that we need to be making to get to our goal. Um, this is more of a mindset thing, but it's aligned with what we're talking about. So I think that to be fulfilled, among other things, like you need to have, there's certain things that you need to have in your life to be fulfilled. One of the things I think is a goal that you actually believe in, not something that you think you're supposed to do or something that somebody else has
Mm-hmm.
chosen for you, which is where I started, but a goal that you actually, it means something to you, and you reverse engineer the things that you need to do to achieve that goal. Profit first forecasting is that. We set a goal and we reverse engineer what are the things that are going to lead to that goal. And we can see with the forecast that if we change a few things here, even if we don't make any additional revenue, just by tweaking a few the way that we're doing things, just by tweaking the way that we're organizing the cash, we can predict when we're actually going to get to our goal. Yeah. Another thing that profit first, sorry, I
Please,
like
I
to go
saw a
on
moment
tangent.
there, so go ahead, run with it.
It really helped me understand my clients on a deeper level too. That's one of the reasons that I got sold on the process because as much as I try to educate my clients on how to read a financial statement, they don't like reading it. They
Mhm.
avoid the financial statement. But when it comes to the forecasting, and I'm showing them like if you keep these expenses, you're not going to be able to hit this goal in 12 months from now or in 6 months from now, whenever we're trying to target. So that speaks their language. And also having the clarity of this account is for this purpose, that account is for that purpose. They all we're doing is organizing their cash in a few different key accounts, and now we can leverage their existing behavior, which isn't to look at their financial statements, but is to log into their online banking and look at how much cash they have. And when they just have all the cash sitting in one bank account, they have
Mhm.
no idea how much needs to be set aside for anything. It's very stressful. But as soon as you know this is how much is set aside for tax, this is how much is set aside for my own owner's pay, this is how much I have for expenses, all of a sudden you see how much clarity they have in their business and it just changes the game.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, I'm just loving this because what I'm hearing is you've done the same thing in your business as you did when you were studying for your CPA exams. You flipped it on its head. You
basically.
flipped the idea on its head and said,
Yeah,
okay, what if I look at this from a learning place and the ultimate goal, right? Where I'm trying to get to, what do I need to do in order to achieve? That's what I hear. Is
absolutely.
that accurate?
Exactly.
So
It's
this seems to be
absolutely accurate.
something you do on a regular basis.
Yeah, I love systems. I could talk about like I love efficiency. I remember when I was working at one of the accounting firms, somebody said to me, "Efficiency is just thoughtful laziness." I'm like, "That's a cool way to put it," because you're trying to save yourself time in the future, right? So you're being thoughtful so that you can be a little bit lazier later. So I love efficiency. I love figuring out ways to make things less stressful. One of my favorite books is Getting Things Done by
It's on my shelf.
David Allen. Great book. I have to reread it every once in a while because I get
uh,
new things out of it.
yeah,
And yeah, yeah.
amazing, amazing. So, what's a favorite story, a favorite client story that was really meaningful for you? I'd love to hear that.
Um, so one of my clients didn't, well, he was sold on the idea of profit first, but wanted to give it a try on his own. And he wasn't able to get it done properly or follow it properly. I don't know
Mhm.
what exactly he got wrong, but he was just going further into debt. And there was a day, and I remember like I had a lot of trouble with this. I still kind of do, because the idea of profit first is without adjusting your revenue and by tweaking your expenses a little bit, you're going to be more profitable. And oftentimes it starts with like we need to do a deep dive into your expenses, analyze them, and start cutting the ones that are unnecessary. But I always had trouble because the people that need me the most are the ones that would have trouble affording my service.
Mhm.
And he got me to think about it a little bit differently because he was the one that came to me and said, "Okay, I think I really need your help with this thing because I keep
Mhm.
going into debt and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it." And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Okay, let's set it up." We set it up. He did a lot of the hard work, to be fair.
Mhm.
But within like 6 months, we had all of his debt paid off. He had a huge reserve in his business, and now he's thinking about buying himself a very, very nice car as a reward using just the profit account. Everything else is taken care of. And like the transformation in his business was amazing. So probably one of my favorite stories. And it probably sounds a little bit transactional, like we're talking about the finance of it, but I mean he was able to achieve this dream car that he always wanted, which is awesome. So
That's you changed his life.
yeah,
Yeah, you changed his life. So he went from being in debt and being worried about his financial security to a place where he could realize a dream.
absolutely. I have to think of some other stories. I haven't really thought about what my favorite stories are.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's such a great story. And I saw you light up, right? As you're thinking about the impact that you're having on the people that you serve. Um, when doesn't it work? Like what
Profit
happens
first.
that gets in the way? Yeah. What do you see as barriers or obstacles that cause people to not succeed?
They don't trust the system. Mo Most of the time, they
Mhm.
just don't want to do it. So I've had some cases where people didn't want to do it, and they thought that they were going to be able to figure things out on their own. Eventually, they turned around and realized that they need some help. We implemented it, and then they understood. Uh, it works. Like I don't know. If you trust the system, you're consistent with it, it's just going to work. The only time that it's not going to work is if you really don't have any sales. Like there
Right,
has to be something to allocate into the
right,
accounts. Unfortunately, it does not solve the problem of sales. And
right.
that would be like the one thing that I would say at this moment in time, if you're looking for somebody that's going to help you generate revenue, I am not your guy. Not
Hmm.
yet, at least.
Does
But
it work? Hmm.
I can definitely tell you like what I see has worked for other clients, and I can share some of that information. But I'm not the coach that's going to be telling you how to grow your revenue. But I
Right.
am the coach that is going to make sure that you're going to grow sustainably. Um, Oh, actually, I have a cool one that's something that doesn't work. Um, Oftentimes in the coaching space, people will get paid a PIF, paid in full. That's what they
Mm-hmm.
call it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I had to explain to my clients is you cannot assume that you're going to be able to sustain the same level of paid in fulls from a month to month basis, on a month to month basis. So you have to make sure that you set aside what you need to. And one of the things that we did to adapt to that situation is we have, so some of our clients, they have contractors that they pay on a fixed base pay basis,
Mm-hmm.
and others, they'll pay them a per member fee, which I
Mm-hmm.
really actually like that model.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that you're charging $1,000 a month for your service, but you get a 6 month paid in full, and now you have to serve that customer for the next 6 months. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say that that's your only customer. The model that I like is we have clients that will pay then a $150 fee to the contractor to deliver the service to that client. So
Mm-hmm.
15%, right? Um, I if they don't reserve the money that they need to pay that coach, what they'll end up doing is spending it all in the first month, thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I had a great month,
Mm-hmm.
and completely forget that they have to continue to fulfill for the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't get another sale in the next month, they won't have anything left to pay that contractor, and they'll feel like they need to constantly make the same level of paid in fulls. So one of the reasons that I like this model is because in the first month that they make that paid in full, if they just set aside 15% of that entire fee, they will
Mm-hmm.
have enough in that account to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they can pay the coach, even if they don't make another dollar. So I have clients that have given a lot of pushback to doing that, and they were fine for quite a while before it all came crashing.
Right.
Because at some point you have these piffs and you have these piffs, and then at some point they drop off, but you
Mm-hmm.
still have to fulfill. So I just
Mm-hmm.
gave an example where there was one client, but imagine at scale, you
Mm-hmm.
have all of these clients that you need to continue to fulfill, but you
Right.
don't have the money left to pay the coaches. That becomes a huge problem. And that was something specific to the coaching industry that we figured out, that we need to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we're setting aside the paid in fulls, because that is
Mm-hmm.
not yet your earned revenue.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. So, you're saying you said a couple things around resistance that I just want to highlight here. The first one was people don't want to. They have a resistance, and that's coming back to identity and what their belief system is and who they see, how they see themselves. Or maybe they just don't want to do the work for whatever reason. There's a resistance there. And the other one is they don't trust the system,
Yeah,
right?
that's the big
They
one.
don't, yeah, don't trust the system, don't believe that it will work. Um, so as we see this, I'm curious for you, has there been a time in your life where you can relate back to I didn't want to or I didn't trust the system and then found yourself looking with hindsight going, oh, you shared a little bit earlier, but is there another story that you might like to share with us before we finish up?
The fitness thing was probably the first one. Like when I started following Gregor Gallagher and following that system, it just seemed way too good to be true. The workouts weren't that difficult. They're you s- Now I understand the science behind it, right? After like years of understanding fitness and understanding like how to um, give the muscle the trigger, I'm trying to remember the word, the impulse that it needs. It's not the right word, but
Mm-hmm.
you get what I'm trying to say. So the minimum effective dose that it needs to actually grow, and then feeding it the appropriate food to help it grow. Now I understand, and now I would have trusted the system. But
Mm.
back then, the idea that you can eat pizza and then get six-pack abs, it was just like it didn't make any sense. And everybody around me was like, "This doesn't make any sense." My parents like were shocked that I
Mm-hmm.
could eat, because again, with intermittent fasting, right, you could
Mm-hmm.
save your calories for later in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and you could have a bigger meal. And so, as somebody with a big appetite, that was very helpful. But then from
Yeah,
the outside, people are looking at me having these big meals. They're like, "You're not going to get in shape eating that." And then I followed the system consistently, even though I wasn't sure. And after 3 months, it worked, and that was a
amazing.
great example.
Yeah. And you highlighted again something here that's really important. Most often we don't trust because it seems too good to be true. Somehow we think that it has to be hard and that the system has got to be difficult in order to serve. And what you've highlighted over and over again, you're just repeating many times in threads throughout our conversation today, that consistency has real potential behind it. And it's the consistency in the patterns and the rhythms and the behaviors and just the consistency step by step. Profit first is another example of that. One thing after another. It's
Yeah,
just the consistency ultimately wins the long game.
I
And
so
it's
agree.
and it's
Yeah,
so hard to trust that that's true, right?
yeah,
Or even to commit ourselves to that, which is some of the bigger challenges that we deal with, right?
yeah.
Last question for you, Daniel, before we finish up today. If with the wisdom that you have today and what you know, what might you tell your younger self or someone who is just starting out their career?
To not live for other people. Nobody's gonna rescue you, and you're gonna be the one that has to live with the consequences of your decisions, not anybody else. So figure out what you want to do.
Mm,
Do not live for other people. I wish I learned that lesson way earlier in life. Yeah,
not live for other people and carve your
yeah,
path forward
yeah,
in the one in your mind's eye, right? What you honor. Beautiful. Thank you so much for today. Where might people find you should they choose
yeah.
to look you
Quick
up?
question. At the time of this recording, I am currently working on being more visible. It's funny that you should ask. There's this guy that's he's big in the fitness space, especially for fitness trainers. I'll give him a little plug here, but his name is John Goodman, and he recently wrote a book called The Obvious Choice. He runs a program called the Personal Trainer Development Center, which I have a few clients that went through, and it really
Mhm.
changed their business. So I think it's a great program.
Nice.
Um, in his book, he has a little blurb about me, and he was trying to make the point in the book about how niching is very important. I obviously have a very clear niche for businesses that I serve. So, and it's funny, in that book, he literally says Daniel Breez does absolutely no marketing and still somehow gets clients. So I'm changing that now. I am trying to do
Aw,
marketing. So for those that want to find me, I will be posting soon on YouTube. You could find my channel Daniel Breez CPA on Instagram. Same thing, Daniel Breez CPA. That's Breeze with no E at the end. Breez CPA.
mhm.
Uh, Instagram is probably going to be where I'll be the most active. And then I've got my website, which also is currently being redesigned, and that's measuredgrowthcpa.com.
Beautiful. Daniel, thank you so much for today's conversation. It's been an absolute delight.
Thank you, Michelle.
My pleasure.